Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to see you today. I'm excited because there's not very much time left until Christmas, and that is my very favorite time of the year. Well, why is it asking me questions right now? Anyway, we have 10 days left until Christmas, and I hope that you are getting ready for whatever holiday that you celebrate, and you have a wonderful time getting together with family and friends and doing the things that make the holidays special for you. Tonight, we're going to be talking about hospitality. And well, hi, Dawn. Glad to see you. Thanks for joining. As usual, I've got my Coach Amy mug back, and I'm drinking spearmint tea today. How about you? What's going on with you? Hi, Linda. Thanks for joining. A couple hours ago, I had a general idea about what I wanted to talk about this evening, and then I kind of polished it up in the last, couple hours. But anyway, yeah, we only have 10 days left till Christmas. So it's going to be a wonderful time this year. Anybody going out of town, or are you staying here? Is anyone hosting? All that great stuff. I'd love to hear from you. Well, as you guys know, all right, ice water, and then you're at work. Well, thank you very much for joining while you're at work and your Diet Pepsi. That is an excellent choice. Oh, you may see that back here, I took down the pictures of the family from generations back because I have started to put the Christmas decorations up, but I'm going to be working on the rest of them this week. How about you guys? Are you ready for whatever holiday that you are celebrating? I'm excited about it. A week from today, I'm going to be having my kids and grandkids over, and we're going to exchange gifts and have a good time that way. So, yes. All right. Well, I couldn't believe it, especially since I study social psychology. One of the most obvious things to social psychology is hospitality. Of course, social psychology is the way that I describe it when people are asking me, why are you getting a doctorate? It begins with the individual. What makes a person unique and what makes a person generally like other people in the world. And the social aspect of it looks for ways that, sorry about moving that, how society influences a person in their development and who they decide that they are going to portray, and also the impact that that person has on social circles and such. And that's the way that this channel got started. We were talking about how everybody has influence and how we're going to use that influence. So usually we have been talking about topics that will embellish or make better, I guess, to grow our influence, not just to influence and whatever, but to make it inspirational to others and to bring others up, make them feel seen, make them feel heard and accepted. That's a very big deal. So when I found out that, according to this, I'll tell you about the article in just a second, but at the top, the very first line, it says, although hospitality is a valued social and cultural phenomenon, it has been largely overlooked in the psychology research literature. I was surprised just how hard it was to come up with actual scientific articles that would talk about any kind of research that's been done. There's all sorts of research that, the psychology of your home and how you build it to make yourself comfortable within that space. Everybody says it's so good to go back home after they've been away. Everything is where you put it. You're comfortable in your own skin inside your own home. So hospitality is a great way to look at the way that you can make other people comfortable and not just yourself. So that's what we're going to be talking about. All right. This article is an actual bona fide social psychology scientific study that was done, and it's called Assessing and Understanding Hospitality. And they actually came up with a brief hospitality scale. In psychology, we have to figure out a way to measure absolutely everything, or else if we don't have the empirical data, then who cares? It's going to get rejected across the board. Nobody's going to want to hear about it. Even if it's obvious things, they still keep coming up with all these acronyms and scales and such. But I guess it's necessary to understand the science of it better. So I'll continue reading. Our studies are designed to advance the understanding of hospitality by creating a brief measure of it that can be used across cultures. Now, that's kind of a big thing. If you think about it, there are some cultures that when you come to the door, everybody's shoes are on the outside of the front door. Maybe that's inside of a porch, whatever, but it's very unkind, disrespectful if you wear shoes into somebody's home. I actually have a friend of a friend who she tried her best to, as a young bride, she had just gotten married. So from what I understand, to be hospitable and to make people feel comfortable in her home, she had slippers and socks by the front door so that people, when they took their shoes off, they'd be able to choose from whatever it is that she had there so that they could, have their feet warm and they wouldn't have to walk around barefoot, that kind of thing. So I love her heart in doing that. That's very nice. Do you guys happen to have any ways that you make people feel seen and comfortable in your home and welcomed? There's one of the funniest things I have ever seen is that I forgot to look that up, but this gentleman, he's a comedian. He's Italian, I believe. And he talks about how hospitality from so many years ago to now has changed drastically. How his mom would always have Intamins in the cabinet waiting for company. It's for company. And if somebody rang the doorbell or knocked on the door, the entire family would be so excited. Who's at the door? Who's at the door? Very excited to go see. And just how much it meant to everybody when somebody came to visit them. But nowadays, if you knock on somebody's door without making plans ahead or texting from the driveway, people feel like they have to hide behind couches and stuff. This gentleman is very funny. I wonder if I would be able to find that really quick. But yeah, so he talks about that and just how much life has changed. I was looking at YouTube this morning and came across an interesting video that was named something simple like the one invention that inadvertently created McMansions. And then during this video, he was talking about the implications of our houses getting so big compared to what they were before this particular invention. Well, the invention is simply a nail plate that's about that big that is responsible for holding together the joists of a roof of a house. It has ended up shifting lifestyles so that we no longer have attics to store things in. So people tend to store their off-season or extra things in the garage or maybe in the basement, that kind of thing. And because the roof is such a solid structure and it can have so many different shapes, the different peaks that you see on lots of the more modern homes now. Well, and the open floor plan also. There's a lot less place where people can go inside their own home or a place where they're going to visit to be private. So, and just to take a breather, and I have several introverted friends in my life. So that's an important thing. If somebody starts feeling kind of overwhelmed because of all the people and all the activity, all the energy in a particular room, sometimes they need to just go tuck away for a minute. And that the nail plate has made huge ramifications this many years later, even in social psychology and the way that people interact with each other. It's just a super interesting thing. I'll try to add that into the description a little bit later. But let's talk about this article a little bit more. Now, let's see, here we go. All right, they did, I believe it's 2 different studies. The first study, they employed a large sample of Americans to create and begin validation of a measure of hospitality. In all nations in both studies, the scale had a single strong factor and high internal consistency. I won't bore you with what that means. But in all nations in both studies, okay, we already did that. In study 2, we administered the measure to respondents from 11 nations and found that people in some countries are significantly more hospitable than people in others. And the countries that they compared in that sentence was the extremely hospitable ones were from Iran. And the ones that they are much more hospitable than are the ones in Singapore. The strongest personality correlates of hospitality were those associated with social characteristics such as extroversion, agreeableness, and feelings of group belonging. So let's tear that down just a little bit. As most people who know me well enough to be watching this or to engaging in this particular community, I am very extroverted. But again, I have many, many introverts in my life, and some of them are excellent at hospitality. They do a wonderful job of making people feel comfortable. They're not always the one to open their home and open the door and greet, boisterously, "Hi, it's so wonderful to see you." But they do an excellent job, perhaps just making the environment comfortable for other people, making sure that it is straightened and their needs are being met in a very quiet way. So I can see where extroversion would be a very important thing to hospitality, or at least a more prominent personality trait. But introverts can be quite hospitable as well. I've seen some of the most kind things, kind actions or behaviors ever from introverts, and I very much appreciate them. Okay, so agreeableness and feelings of group belonging. Hard to be hospitable when you feel like you don't belong. If you feel like you're constantly struggling to find your groove in this particular social group, it's going to be hard for you to be super hospitable, even though you can take the time to get to know people, even if it's from an observational stance, just watching how things are going and making sure that people have the things that they need, or learning a little bit about each individual person, one-on-one conversations. That's a good thing. Pretty much like we were talking about last week with gift giving and how important it is to see the individual and the individual's contribution when you're giving a gift. So gift giving can be, in my opinion, part of hospitality. How do you make a person feel comfortable, right, and accepted? All right. So we'll go a little bit further. And by the way, I should say that this article, I like that this is in, let's see if I can find the name of it. Yes. International Journal of Wellbeing is the name of the magazine that this is in. Actually, scientific journal, but Assessing and Understanding Hospitality. So I love that. And it was published in 2019, so just a couple years ago. I think that's interesting that this was established just before the pandemic hit. I would have to wonder how much hospitality has changed specifically because of the pandemic. But okay. The very strongest association with hospitality was the ability to see the perspective of others. Empathy. Being empathetic is very important in all the ways. Okay, just being able to get a sense of a person. Perhaps let's just talk about if somebody comes into my home for the very first time. I host lots of gatherings here. Most of them are maybe a dozen people or less. There are some that are dozens of people when they come. I love it all the different sizes of groups and such. But if a person comes with their friend who knows me and that person is a little bit unsure of themselves, I don't want to ever come on too strong. I don't want my voice to be too loud. I don't want my pitch of my voice to be too high. I don't want to overwhelm that person in any way. I walk them through the home to make sure that they know where all the things that they need will be so that they don't have to feel like they have to push themselves forward to get their needs met. I'll show them in the refrigerator where the bottled water is, so they're welcome to go get it at any time. I'll show them where the restroom is. And if somebody is starting to we'll walk through the house. You get what I'm saying. Just showing them where the things are that they need. And maybe showing them the backyard, getting any kind of a conversation going about just about anything, to see what it is that lights them up, what's exciting for them to talk about, and then bring them into wherever the party room is. It's usually in this room. But making sure that each person knows how to meet their own needs so that they don't feel like they have to come ask or to find me or to interrupt a conversation. That's an important part of hospitality as well. Okay. All right, going back to the article. It says hospitality represents more than simple sociability and seems to rest on the feelings of togetherness with others, concern for their well-being, and positive feelings toward them. Sometimes people they feel like they're off their game or they're just thrown off kilter, whatever it is, when they're around other people. As well as having a lot of introverts in my life, I have a lot of people that have ADHD in my life as well. And along with ADHD comes particular social interaction styles that can be difficult, or at least the person who has ADHD has been scolded in the past for maybe blurting out something that they're very excited about right in the middle. And then they say, no, I'm sorry, excuse me. And then they try to calm them, make themselves small. That's something that I try to address with kindness and firmly. You are welcome here. And when you are excited about something and blurt it out like that, that shows me more of who you are. And I appreciate you. I accept you. And I wish for you to feel comfortable in expressing yourself in the future. So that's very important to me, that people don't feel like their awkwardness or whatever is showing and making people think that they're weird. That's not going to happen here in this home. Another example is I saw a good friend of mine saying to her guest, who is a good friend of hers, we don't say I'm sorry in my home. This person, it was a habit, more like, oh, I'm sorry, when they had nothing to be sorry about. So that was another form of being hospitable, making people feel comfortable in their own skin and in your presence. Remember, hospitality doesn't have to be in your own home. It can be somewhere else. Maybe you're at a huge corporate party or something, and you notice your coworker's wife or coworker's husband or something who's kind of off something's wrong. Really, something's wrong. They're feeling super awkward. See if you can figure out a way to make them feel more engaged and to forget whatever it is that was making them feel awkward. Maybe they just don't know anybody and it's a like a formal dinner, something. Whatever it is, maybe they're super introverted and maybe they're shy on top of being introverted. The way that you help a person who is introverted in a situation like that is try to engage them in meaningful but not too personal conversation. You don't want to dig into who they are and put them as the spotlight of the conversation, but you also don't want to say anything about the weather. So just engaging in conversation about what both of you are observing is helpful. Making sure that that person who feels awkward never sees you as the person who will stand in the corner and gossip about other people or have a bad attitude about other people. Nobody feels comfortable around a person like that because they know without a doubt that once their back is turned, you're going to be talking about them too. So trying to find commonality at somebody else's expense, not a good thing. But to draw conversation, quiet, calm, just maybe the two of you, that helps an introvert in a large room. So let's see. So hospitality, like I said, represents more than simple sociability and seems to rest on feelings of togetherness with others, concern for their well-being, and positive feelings toward them. There was many years ago when I was very first married, I was about, I was 22 actually when I was going to a Christmas party for my work, and it was going to be a really big deal. So we didn't have a whole lot of money back then, like most people don't when they're 22 and brand new married. But I actually found a pattern, found the material that was a good color, and I found it on sale and made the dress that I wore to this particular function. My husband, he's my ex-husband now, but my husband at the time, was so proud of me and the way that I had made that dress for such a party. And it turned out beautifully. It really did. He bought me some costume jewelry to go along with it. That was stunning. So I wore that. And I was a little uncomfortable walking into that environment, even being the extrovert that I am. I was the receptionist for this doctor's office. So obviously, my extrovertedness was something that everybody would be used to, but I was wearing a dress that I had made. And I was afraid that people were going to notice that it was something that I had made and therefore judge me because I couldn't afford to go buy a dress. You get the idea. I was thrown off kilter, even in an environment where I should have been confident. Well, one of the physicians that I was working for, he said, "I love your dress." And then somebody else said something about the necklace. Instantly, I was like, I feel better. Okay, now I'm back to myself. I can walk around, have a really wonderful time that night. Again, I am extroverted, so being in a party environment is very easy for me generally, but you can pick out things like that where, as the article was just saying, maybe they don't feel very much the feelings of togetherness. I was yikes. So anyway, helping people feel like they belong. That's important. Yeah. Okay. Well, we found in both studies that hospitality is associated with higher levels of well-being. Okay. So if a person has a higher level of well-being, then they're going to be more expressive and hospitable actions. All right. So some of those, let's see. Okay. The well-being, some of the things that the traits that were included in the well-being are optimism, flourishing, and positive affect. I think we've talked about this probably quite a bit several weeks ago about how to exude confidence and how to bring other people up just by how you stand. So that very last trait that they were talking about, the positive affect, looking someone in the eyes, having your shoulders your shoulders are square to them, shoulders are back and down, you're relaxed, your chin is, horizontal to the floor. And just looking at a person straight on, not in a confrontational way, but a comfortable way. That is positive affect. And it ends up rubbing off on people, even if somebody is kind of taken aback, like, because they're so introverted or they're already feeling off kilter, whatever. That's where it begins. It's just carrying soft, kind confidence that wants to show somebody that they belong and that they are cared for. So let's see. Here we go. The Oxford English Dictionary, the definition of hospitality. Lots of people are in the hospitality, careers, concierge or management and hotel systems or whatever, being a server in a fine restaurant, whatever. But while some of those are transferable, I would dare say that hospitality in the way that I'm talking about goes much deeper. So let's look at what the Oxford English Dictionary says. The definition is friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests or strangers. So it doesn't say anything about where. So that could be a new coworker who's coming on. And they just need to know, okay, if there's anything that you need, I'm here, and this is what I do. This is my name. And tell them a little bit about yourself so that that intimacy is automatically gained. So they feel more comfortable coming to you if they need to, for whatever reason, or just go to lunch, right? Okay, and then there's a second definition. Maybe, it's also the Oxford English Dictionary, but cordiality, warmth, congeniality, sociability, and generosity. Over the last few months, I've had lots of conversations about generosity and what it means. If you're in a funeral or at a funeral and whether you're hosting the funeral or if you are attending the funeral, looking for the needs of other people to be met, especially those who are grieving, that's an excellent thing that you can do to show hospitality and that people are seen and cared for and accepted. The next sentence in the article says, these two definitions suggest the complexity of the concept. On the one hand, hospitality is viewed in behavioral terms. It's a transaction between the host and a guest in which the former, the host, I hate it when they do that, shares personal resources with the latter, the guest. For example, a host provides dinner or entertainment for a guest. On the other hand, as suggested by the second definition, hospitality is also viewed as an attitude. In this case, it is understood to be a quality of personality, an attitude of welcoming. Okay, so how many of you have been to a bridal shower or even worse, a baby shower? I've had the wonderful opportunity of throwing a bridal shower and a baby shower for my middle kid, and actually for my son too. The one that I'm thinking about is for my daughter. She and I were talking about it, and both of us are very hospitality driven. We have friends. She's much less extroverted than I am, but we have the same way of interacting with people. So for her, we decided to keep it co-ed so that she and her husband would be there for the baby shower. And instead of setting up an environment where there were, just round tables where 6 or 8 people could sit at each one, we tried to make it a lot more of a flowing type atmosphere. We set it up, you need to have tables if you're going to be eating, but we wanted it to be where people could interact. Okay, well, I want to talk to these people for a couple of minutes. And whether for extroverted or introverted reasons, whatever, I can move to talk to these people, or I can go off to the corner and pretend like I need more punch because I've had enough talking for a few minutes. I just want to get away. Whatever. The more people are able to mill about, the better. And we opted to not have any of those baby shower games. We, I can't remember the specifics. It's coming to mind now, this particular example. But I remember that we just facilitated conversation the best that we possibly could. One of the best ways to be a host is to spark conversations while you're in that environment, and spark connections also. Walking up to somebody, hey, I'm so glad that you're here. Oh my gosh, I wanted you to meet so-and-so because they have this in common with you. Staying in that conversation with them for a moment, letting them get a little more established in their conversation, and then excusing yourself as you go off to talk to other people. Well, that's the kind of an environment that we wanted to have for the baby shower. And we got, I don't know, maybe a dozen people tell us that was just such a wonderful baby shower because it was so relaxed. Everybody was able to just be themselves at whatever way. There was no competition. Everybody got door prizes. We didn't have to try to be clever or to think really hard. We didn't have to stop conversation that with somebody that we were excited to talk to so that we could play a game. Some baby showers, bridal showers, games are just wonderful. That's great. As long as it's in balance with making sure to take care of the needs of your guests. So that was just a thought. I don't know if you guys have experienced anything about that. I would love to hear about it. Okay. So there are 2 hallmark features of hospitality, it says. The first is the physical location of the pro-social interaction. So, okay, my home, you see part of this room here. This is the primary spot where there's any kind of hospitality that happens. Then I have a decent sized kitchen. When I bought the house, a couple of people said, wow, this is a kitchen that you can dance in. And that's a lovely thing for hosting any number of type of gatherings, because you know how people like to go into the kitchen, and that's where a lot of people end up hanging out. So that's 2 places. Both of them are acceptable. Then there's also the porch where there could be a more intimate, it's like a 3 Seasons porch. That could be a more intimate place to host. Then there's the backyard. On the right day, with the right weather, the backyard is an excellent, wonderful place to host. But right now, being December 15th, that would not be a good place. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So that's what we're talking about. In the case of hospitality, sharing, broadly defined, happens within the context of the host's home. And the home, I like that they make this distinction like I was talking about earlier. Home here could mean office, house, or other locations that constitute the host's, but not the guest's, territory. There was a time years, I don't know how many, 10 years ago, maybe something like that. I was singing in the choir at my church. And I remember seeing that a friend that I hadn't seen in years was actually visiting my church. Okay, my territory. I know this person. So when the service shifted and I was able to go greet her, I did, and made sure that I did it in a way that she would appreciate. Um, Again, I was hosting, but I had nothing to do with the setup, the provision of any comforts, anything like that, other than a welcoming, excited greeting to make sure that she felt seen and as though she belongs and all that wonderful stuff. She's still going to that church, by the way, so it's a good thing. Let's see what else. Okay, the host welcomes the guest into the host territory where the sharing occurs. As such, hospitality is a face-to-face, whether virtual or physical phenomenon that does not allow for anonymity in the relationship. I keep saying, making sure a person feels seen and accepted. That's what they're talking about there. The face-to-face aspect of hospitality is non-trivial, so it's important because it relates to the second hallmark feature, the social and emotional tenor of the transaction. Right, that's kind of an odd way, but we are reading from a scientific journal. So the social and emotional tenor of the transaction, namely, hospitality is concerned with fostering a relaxed and positive tone. Historically, strangers, travelers, and even enemies enjoyed occasional hospitality governed by formal rules. Okay. So like I was saying before, relaxed and positive. If I greet somebody and I'm like this, hi, I'm really glad you're here, you're not going to believe me. So that's why I was saying shoulders back and down, chin up, not too up. You get what I'm saying. You've met people who are too rigid or too stiff, too tall, too formal for the environment. But you need to make sure that what you exude, the confidence, the stillness, the peace, the accepting feelings for the other person, make sure that all that positive tone and relaxed tone is expressed so that the person can themselves mimic that. They receive that comfort and calm. So it should be noted that hospitality, in the lay understanding of the concept, is also distinct from related concepts such as generosity, even though both concepts fall under the broad umbrella of pro-social behavior. Generosity is a relatively liberal attitude toward the giving of one's own resources, including money and possessions. There's definitely a way to be an incredibly hospitable host, even if the person leaves your presence without having received anything from you. Of course, when a person comes to your home, you should ask if you can get them something to drink, maybe a snack, depending on the situation. Or if they're going to be there a long time, then make sure that you take care of their physical needs, such as a meal or whatever, if you can. But generosity, while it's an attitude of hospitality, I would dare say that the empathy factor is a much higher and stronger component to hospitality than generosity is. But we'll keep reading on. Generosity is distinct from hospitality in that it can include anonymous transactions. So giving, well, they're talking about donating money to aid organizations. Maybe you guys could share with me what you think about that. In addition, generosity has no element of welcome. Hospitality does. That's a big one. Okay, their definition or their example that they give. Purchasing a theater ticket for a friend who forgot her wallet, for instance, is generous, but not, by definition, hospitable. Further, it's possible that hospitality does not always include the giving of one's resources on a permanent basis. Okay, so let's take a step back from all of this. We've already talked about what hospitality is, some examples of the ways that I have hosted and tried my best to make people feel welcome in my own home. We have many of the holidays still left. Thanksgiving has come and gone for 2024. So the next chance you have for Thanksgiving is almost a year away. We can talk about Christmas or birthdays, anniversaries, Hanukkah for my Jewish friends, all those different holidays. How are you going to use your influence to inspire others or to make them feel seen and accepted and put them at ease in the ways that we're talking about with hospitality? There's no better way for you to inspire others than by making sure that they have a sense of belonging, that their uniqueness is celebrated, and that they are very much an important part of your life and of the social gathering, of the social circle, those kinds of things. Okay, here's a list of words that the article gives that help us know what, some synonyms, if you like those. Okay. Warm, friendly, listening, respect, security. If a person feels secure in your presence, good job. Good job. All right. Okay, so they're talking about current research. And now that I'm finding that there is such a huge hole in all of social psychology with regard to hospitality, I may have to tweak my dissertation to include that component. Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, this second section of the article says the current research. In this article, we have 3 primary goals. Create a valid brief measure of hospitality so they can tell if they've been successful. Number 2, explore its association with personality and well-being. Again, I think this is a skill, not necessarily a personality trait, but I would agree you have to be healthy. You probably should be healthy and have a high level of well-being to be able to be hospitable. All right. And then 3, use it as an instrument to explore differences between people from nations across the globe. What a wonderful thing. There was a book that I read for my master's that's called Cultural Humility. Understanding that you don't know, but being humble enough about it that you're willing to learn. And you're constantly trying to find ways to understand people that are very different from yourself. All right. All right. Here's the end of that article, by the way. Let me scan through here really quick. Okay. For social well-being, which is hospitality, was most strongly correlated with belonging and helping one's community. Hospitality was very strongly related to positive forms of well-being. They're going to divulge what they mean by well-being now. Life satisfaction, positive affect, optimism, and flourishing, and modestly associated inversely with negative affect. So if it's modestly associated inversely, then you can have negative affect and good hospitality skills, I betcha. All right, assuming that national and cultural differences in hospitality exist, which they would, a measure of hospitality with good validity should be able to assess such differences. Right. There's and I don't remember which country I had heard this about, but it is in restaurants, it's considered appropriate for the water glass to constantly be filled. So if a person drinks down half of the glass, then a server would automatically fill it back up, hopefully, trying their best to do it without being seen or perceived. And I thought that was a very interesting thing, because for me, like, if you keep filling my glass, what are you doing? Stop. I didn't, it's not necessary for me, but in that particular culture, that's important. Yeah, that's a rather small example, innocuous even, but yeah. Anyway, different cultures are different ways. Okay, so the current study, and this is the discussion section, which goes at the end of scientific journal articles. The current study offers an initial exploration into the experience of hospitality. This is a common social phenomenon that has, until now, been conspicuously absent from psychological research attention, which is a good reason for me to pick it up. All right, so they used the particular scale that they had developed to examine common personality predictors, including the 5-factor model and perspective taking. Of the 5 factors, extroversion, that's the first, was the strongest predictor of overall hospitality. It may be that extroverts are particularly suited to the social aspects of hospitality. Yeah, it may be the ability to put oneself in another person's shoes. In other words, empathy, a psychological skill that makes hospitality easier and more effective. I should say, just to reinforce the idea that hospitality is a skill, one of my friends that I've been friends with the longest out of anybody, she can't stand people, but she has such good hospitality skills, ways of interacting with people. She has social manners that were drilled into her by her mom, that she ends up drawing people into her life. She's like, why do they keep talking to me? Well, because you have manners, which is a big part of being hospitable, making people feel welcome. Yeah. So hospitality is a virtuous action, seem to be a cultural universal, which means rates and distributions of hospitality. We found mean rates. There we go. Sorry about that. I read that a little bit too fast. The average rates and distributions of hospitality to differ from nation to nation and such. So let's go ahead and we'll back off away from the article now. I have people that are coming over a week from today. In the morning, I am hosting a small gathering. It's basically Christmas Sunday. We're getting together in the morning to celebrate. Now, the ways that I'm going to prepare for that, so that when people start arriving and they feel like the ambiance feels welcoming, I'm going to be making sure that my Christmas decorations are up there. And I want to remind you, this is not about how much money you spend. I don't spend much money from Christmas to Christmas decorating my house. These are things that I take care of and I put away. This should not break the bank. This should not feel to you at all like to be a good host or to express hospitality, you have to spend money. No, that's not what I'm saying. But to make people feel welcome and happy to be here, to instantly put them at ease, the way that I'm going to set the whole environment up is nice, comfortable seating. The environment will be Christmas themed, not overly so, because you don't want somebody to feel like they have to, like they don't have much room to express themselves or to walk through, like they're going to knock something over. And since children will be here, I'll need to be careful to not have things out that are generational gifts, like something from my grandma or my great grandma that can be breakable or that is breakable. I don't want that kind of thing to be out, because then the parents will constantly be on top of their children, making sure that they're not going to break anything. Well, anyway, I will have Christmas music playing quietly in the background. I'll make sure that the floor plan is set so it's as open as possible so people can mill about, like I was talking about with the baby shower that my daughter and I threw. And we are going to have a meal together, but it's not my job to provide all of the whole meal. So making sure that there is a table that is ready to receive what people bring as part of, or as their part of the potluck, with the electric strip there ready for people to plug in their crock pots or whatever it is that they bring, having that all set out, making sure that the particular areas of the house that people need, where the water is, that's where you spend the money. That's what they say in real estate. That's also where people need to see it's clean, right? So people feel like they can get a glass, they can go to my kitchen sink, they can get some water, they can make themselves some tea or some coffee because of the display that's sitting out. And it's as much self-service as would make people feel comfortable. Talking to each individual person when they come. I might not get to everybody because it's been known to be a gathering of at least 35 or more people. So I might not be able to talk to everybody individually, but I will constantly be scanning and watching to make sure everybody is comfortable and engaging in one way or another. So I would love to hear about how your holidays are shaping up, what it is that you're going to be doing to help people feel comfortable in particular situations where it's your territory, like we were saying. How is it that you will be able to help? Well, it's been an hour already. I really appreciate you joining us. I hope that you are all set up for a great holiday season, the rest of what's left. If you'd like to get a hold of me for anything, for coaching services or any kind of seminars, I have lots of them listed on coachamypratt.com. You can contact me through that website. I would love to hear from you. If you have ideas for things that you would like for us to talk about here on this channel, then I'd be happy to hear about it. Always looking for ideas and however I can serve you. So thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful evening.